fantastical, so unpredictable, here on the SNL Network.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the SNL Network Superfan Takeover. I'd like to wish you all a happy Halloween, because today we are going to be talking our favorite Halloween moments in SNL history. We've got a couple categories for you guys, and it's going to be a lot of fun. If this is your first time checking out the Superfan Takeover, basically, us superfans, we, take the keys from John, and we switch up how the show usually goes, where we're not talking about current and upcoming SNL, but we're looking back, and we are discussing some of our favorite moments on the show. Some of the topics we've talked about in the past, if you haven't seen them, are we've done a cast draft, which was a lot of fun. We did a favorite digital shorts episode and some of our favorite impressions. So if you had not had a chance to check out those episodes, please do so. And there may even be an opportunity for you guys at home to be on the show, which is a lot of fun. You got to be a real super fan, though, to hang with these awesome people on the panel today. So starting off, I will introduce our guests on the Superfan Takeover. First off, we have Andrew Haskell. Haskell, how's it going?
It's going good. Excited to talk to you guys. Feel like it's been a little while since we've all gotten together to talk about some SNL history. So excited to be here. Excited to talk about SNL. Excited to talk about spooky season. Let's do it.
And speaking of spooky season, I got to ask, what's this getup? I think I have a guess about what you could be.
Are you suggesting you have a question?
Any
questions? I had to finally get my David S. Pumpkin suit out and put it on for this occasion, because when we're talking about SNL Halloween, David S. Pumpkins is going to come up.
Yeah, no, let's hope so. Otherwise, we'll be destroyed in the comments. But, up next, we have our very own Bill Kenney. Bill, how's it going?
I'm doing well. I don't have anything nearly as elaborate as Haskell, but I am dressed as Crazy Sneaker Hand. Isn't this bizarre?
Now that is, if anyone at home, needs a Halloween costume, that Adam Sandler has a good amount of them.
Plenty of tips.
He's got plenty of tips, and that is something that might come up later in the show. We could help you guys out with your costumes. And finally, we have the great Andrew Haynes. Andrew, how's it going?
It is going fantastic. I am dressed as someone whose team is going to the World Series. That's my costume, and it feels good.
Well, I can feel the tensions already brewing on the Superfan Takeover. But awesome, cool. So like I said before up top, we are going to be talking our favorite Halloween moments in the show's history. Really quickly, can anyone here guess what my costume is? Well, wow. I didn't put my goatee on, but I am the great Adam Sandler in the Uncut Gems movie. You see, I got the glasses, I got the shirt. Doesn't matter. This isn't about me. This is about our favorite Halloween moments in SNL history. So the categories we have for you guys tonight are best sketch. So this is a live sketch, could be a cold open, something that's live on the show. Next, we have best pre-tape. So this could be a digital short, commercial parody, what have you. And then finally, we have best update correspondent. So these are all Halloween themed. We're not going to be too harsh on the rules. If something gives you a scary, spooky Halloween season vibe and it didn't air from the Halloween show, that is fine. But I'm going to start off with the great Andrew Haskell. Haskell, what is the live sketch that you want to talk about tonight?
If you guys remember, hopefully you guys are all longtime fans. You remember when we did SNL digital shorts and Bill Kenney stayed up for 3 days straight and he watched every single one of them. A much different vibe with this one, with this task. A little bit more scarce in terms of finding Halloween episodes. There's the last episode before Halloween, and then there's episodes that have taken on really Halloween vibes, right? And so for my live sketch, I went to an episode that is, to me, one of the best Halloween episodes that really took on that vibe. So I went back to John Hamm, 2008, and I went with one of the greatest gut punch moments in show history for me. That's Will Forte as Jeff Montgomery trick-or-treating as a registered sex offender. It is, I think it was Dan Aykroyd that once said that SNL is really great when it's a concept machine, not necessarily a joke machine. And that era of SNL really defines that. And that's one of those moments where when he shows up and the whole joke is he's a registered sex offender, trick-or-treating, using Halloween as a chance to get this paper signed. The whole thing is concept. Like, it's not really a very punchy sketch, but the one gut punch when he says that and everything that surrounds it is just amazing. It is, and it's a great Halloween sketch because it is trick-or-treating. It was the right time of year. It was the right host. And Forte is just amazing in it. And it does sort of, there's a few moments where you're expecting SNL to add like that twist at the end where it's not what you're expecting. And then it turns out it just is what you're expecting. And just one more thing about that sketch. I am a sucker for whenever SNL around the holidays will end the sketch with like a Merry Christmas from SNL or like Happy Easter from SNL. And they do it in this sketch, but the beauty of it is it comes after like such a just like gross, slimy sketch and from such a gross, slimy character that the juxtaposition of it all is amazing.
Excellent choice there, Haskell. Yeah, I mean, this is one that definitely came up when I was looking into some of these Halloween sketches. I'm going to bring in Bill here. Bill, do you have any thoughts on this trick or treat sketch with Jon Hamm and Will Forte?
This was definitely up there, and you'll see. I have the same kind of idea as Haskell as far as a Halloween episode as compared to just happens to air. But yeah, I mean, Forte at his absolute best, absolute creepiest. You know, we talk about it all the time, how you know where the sketch is going and it's still funny as hell. And when they do that, it's the writing and it's the amazing casting. And Forte and Jon Hamm was such a great straight man in this. Yeah, perfect. And you get the great Forte. What? So, yeah, great pick.
If I had access to our new handy SNL Network soundboard, I would love to have that just the what to just play for a bunch of for a lot of this episode. But yeah, Haynes, what I found interesting when I was doing research for this episode was, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jon Hamm hosted a lot of these kind of like late October shows when he was doing his run up of hosting gigs in the late 2000s, early 2010s. I mean, first off, what are your thoughts on this pick? And then, what is it about Jon Hamm as a host that, kind of lends himself to these kind of spooky situations?
That's a great question. I hadn't thought about that. And I'm answering the second question first. But maybe he is, it might have something to do with, he's not quite always a Christmas episode level, like, pull for audiences, but he's good enough for a holiday episode. Like, he's very good. He's very popular. But those Christmas episodes are just so tough. I mean, they're, really reserved for the cream of the crop. Not that Jon Hamm isn't, especially, when he was doing Mad Men and stuff. That's a great question. I hadn't thought about it, but he certainly has. And he's always a great host. I love Jon Hamm. And Haskell, I love this pick. It's a perfect pick. I kind of was flip-flopping about maybe if this was my favorite Halloween live sketch of all time. Jeff Montgomery is an incredible character, and it is just great the way the joke is that he just keeps trying to kind of slip in all his legal obligations, letting the neighbors know. So he's like, "So what are you for Halloween?" "I am a sex offender." And then it's okay. Wait, are you really a sex offender, or are you dressed as a sex offender? And then we get to, go through that series of him, weaseling back and forth, and then actually pulling out the papers and asking him to sign it that he's said that he's a sex offender. I hope that everyone has seen this sketch. If you haven't, it's an all-time classic. It's not just a great Halloween sketch. It's truly a really all-time great SNL sketch, I think. I think we've talked about it on the show in the past at some point. I vaguely remember talking about this on some other episode. I don't know what it would have been. unless it was maybe close to Halloween last year. But this is a top-notch sketch. Great choice.
I certainly echo that. And yeah, I mean, Jeffrey Montgomery, when I was going through and looking up these Halloween sketches, I pulled this one up and immediately remembered this when I watched it when it aired. It must have been like almost 10 years ago, if not more. And I think he only did this character twice. I saw once he did it again with the Tim McGraw hosted Thanksgiving show. But yeah, just a very memorable turn from Will Forte and a great pick for one of the best Halloween live sketches of all time. Moving on to Bill. Bill, what did you bring to the table for this one?
Well, as I teased a little bit earlier, I kind of took the same approach. I love when they go in all in, and I know we kind of were upset about Mulaney's episode last year that this was the first time in almost 30 years that they had Halloween episode on Halloween, and they didn't lean into Halloween at all. Going back to season 19, Christian Slater hosted episode. They did the monologue. One of the few times they did the monologue, they did a great behind the scenes, backstage, the llama, Lauren, the whole 9 yards. And we also get Sandler, but the one I want to talk about is Matt Foley. Second appearance on the show. No diminishing returns on this, even though it's basically a carbon copy of the Christina Applegate episode from a few months earlier. Phil Hartman has him come over, talk to the kids because they're throwing eggs at the houses, and he's been waiting in the basement forever. And the best part about watching this, even after you've seen it 1,000 times, is now you always look for Farley trying to break Spade and Melanie Hutzel and Christian Slater. Obviously never breaks Phil because Phil is never able to be broken. But even picking up Spade and falling through the table, you knew it was coming, but it was so fantastic. And you get all the great lines, Jack Squat and Van down by the river. And maybe by the 8th or 9th time we saw Matt Foley, there were diminishing returns, but on the second, and you can hear it in the audience, like they were just so excited to see Matt Foley back and to have it on a Halloween themed episode. This is my pick for live sketch.
Really great pick there, Bill. Yeah, it's funny. I mean, obviously the first appearance of Matt Foley is so iconic that this one definitely is not talked about as much. So if you guys at home, who are fans of the show, haven't seen this one, definitely go search for this one on YouTube. Haynes or Haskell, do either of you want to jump in on this one?
So something that I love about this is, with the Matt Foley thing, we see that same living room over and over again. So this was only the second appearance of Matt Foley. So like the audience doesn't click just because we see that set that like this is a Matt Foley thing, and it's not until they actually Phil Hartman actually introduces him, and then everyone is like, oh, it's this guy coming back. So I thought that was really great. But yeah, absolute. First of all, this is going to be a tough show apparently because the people who go last are going to be struggling. These are two really great picks, and definitely were the ones I was considering. Anytime we get Matt Foley is great, but this one was particularly fun. I am like a Halloween guy. I really, really was growing up. I grew up being really into the ghouls and goblins holiday. And so I love I love scary stories, but this is a great story we get from Matt Foley. Well, first he threw the eggs and then he threw the big game, and then he threw back a shot, and now he's getting thrown out of the house. And we just get this really great classic Matt Foley story, and you can't go wrong with any Matt Foley. And since this obviously was one of the earlier ones, before we get some of those diminishing returns, fantastic. And like you said, Bill, just the behind the scenes at the thing. At the beginning, during the monologue, I loved Chris Farley, popping up in his jack-o'-lantern pumpkin outfit, and just a really fantastic episode, top to bottom. So, of course, a great choice with that sketch as well.
Yeah, definitely, Haynes. And also, Matt Foley, the character, one of the all-time probably great SNL Halloween costumes. If you're trying to be somebody from the show, that's like just an instantly recognizable character to play. Haskell, do you want to jump in here before we move on?
Yeah, this sketch, great selection. We're gonna hear this all night, right? Like this, that was right up there for me as well. But it does something that I really love when SNL does, and it's when you get to see an iconic character. And listen, if Matt Foley came up once, he still would have been an iconic character, like from that one sketch. But when you take these iconic characters and put them in these like holiday scenes or these scenes that are like topical. I love when SNL does that, especially when it comes to Halloween or it comes to Christmas. And it's something I wish they did a little bit more, actually. So to see that character kind of reacting in a Halloween space is pretty awesome.
No, that's a really good point, because I do feel like a lot of the times now with some of the recurring bits that the current era of the show does, it's, not as specifically kind of flipped. It's kind of like same scenario, different, obviously different jokes, but not, when you do add like that holiday element to it, it definitely, you already are kind of bringing it to another level of differentiation, for the sketch. So it makes it feel a little less stale. But all right, cool. Well, yeah, this was a great pick, Bill. Haynes, kind of like you were alluding to with going last. Don't worry, as the host, I always, I'm falling on my sword here, where I go last. I let you guys pick the best, and I'm, scrambling over here trying to figure out what I'm going to talk about. But Haynes, with that said, what are you bringing to the table for your best live sketch?
Well, in you're being so magnanimous here. I won't mention the other contenders because you might need to use one of them in a second. But the one that I settled on, and it became an easy choice since Haskell got to pick Jeff Montgomery, because I really still flip-flopping up until this moment. I really loved Clinton's Halloween Party. This is a classic one. We get a lot of great political impressions. Amy Poehler in her classic Hillary Clinton. I really love, I think Daryl Hammond's Bill Clinton is like an all-time great impression. And I love when he shows up and he's dressed as Mystery from the Pickup Artist, I guess. And Hillary saying like, hey, we're supposed to be dressed as bride and groom. And he goes, oh, man, people know we're married. I just love his attitude, that kind of, fun Playboy version of Bill Clinton that he plays. So a really fun sketch. We get, I think, was it Will Forte as John Edwards? I think we see John, and then, of course, we get Sudeikis and Hader, pop up as the two candidates who are so similar that they can't be told apart. But I think the big reveal, probably, which makes it, a classic sketch, is we get a cameo and then a live from New York from future President Barack Obama, which is pretty crazy. That was a great way to bring him into the sketch. He shows up in the Barack Obama mask, pops it off. It's Barack Obama. And then he actually gets to drop the LFNY. So just a really fun sketch, a lot going on there. And again, I'm just a sucker for Daryl Hammond's Bill Clinton anytime. So an excuse, to tie that in with the Halloween stuff made this a top choice for me.
Really great pick there, Haynes. Yeah, this is one. It's one of the more memorable, or I don't know if memorable is the right word, but I feel like this political cold open definitely like stands the test of time, because the Halloween element definitely makes it memorable. Obviously, the Obama live from New York. When I rewatched this one last night, I totally forgot that he does it solo. I was like, all right, does he do it with Amy and Daryl coming in? But getting the solo live from New York, definitely an iconic Halloween sketch. Haynes or Bill, do you guys want to jump in on this one?
Well, and another point, this is a great pick, and definitely having an actual political figure do something that small, come in, boom, out, perfect. And how about the fact that we have three iconic impressions in this, between Hillary, Amy as Hillary, Daryl as Bill, and then Jason as future President Joe Biden. It's pretty crazy, even though he doesn't have a lot to do in this, wearing his SpongeBob costume. But yeah, it's a great pick, and it's definitely one of the more memorable sketches in the times before there were 100 cameos on the show. This was great.
Definitely, and he has a great line when the two of them are dressed as SpongeBob, saying like, if only one of us was here, we'd really be able to make an impact. And yeah, definitely. I guess it's 14 years later. Geez, just kind of seeing where we are, especially with the recent Jason Sudeikis hosted episode with him coming back as Biden. That is the fun stuff for me being an SNL fan, is just the lore and the history of people playing certain people and coming back, and it's always fun. Haskell, do you have any thoughts on this sketch?
A great sketch, a great cold open. Those are the moments where SNL feels a little larger than life, and those are the moments, and we've talked about it on the podcast in general. We've talked about it during the Superfan Takeovers. Is there haven't been many moments in the last handful of years where like it just feels like everything stops for a second, and everybody goes, "Oh, like yeah, this is a live show. This is the show where things happen." And when like a younger Barack Obama like pulls off that mask, and you're like, "Wait, that's Barack Obama. Like he's running for president. He's on SNL right now." Like it solidified him as like really the younger, the cooler candidate. It was a really great moment for the show. Great selection for a sketch, and it's so tough now. It doesn't matter who cameos and who were to do something like that. The actual sketch, the actual moment is not what would be remembered and not what would be discussed. We'd be discussing, politics and things that have nothing to do with the show. So that's the unfortunate reality. But in that moment, what a cool, huge moment that was for the show.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely one of the most memorable Halloween moments, in the show's history. And, it being a political cold open, there's not a ton of those kind of crossovers. So definitely a great one to bring in here. Haynes, wow. Very, as the person going last, I'm very happy you guys didn't pick this one, because, we had to talk about it. We have him here on the show with us tonight. We got David S. Pumpkins, man. This sketch, we're talking about when like SNL is larger than life. It's hard to think about over the last couple of years what kind of character or sketch made as big of an impact pop culturally than David S. Pumpkins. It's just such a silly, stupid idea. I do think having it be Tom Hanks in the role is really what makes this from a good sketch to a great sketch. One of the best hosts of all time. This was right when Mikey Day joined the cast. He might have already been a writer at this point, but this is a classic kind of Mikey Streeter pairing of just silly absurdity, which that was one of the first times we really saw that brought into the show, and it kind of makes sense why that pairing has worked so well over the years, and they always are able to get stuff on. Just so many different elements to this one. I mean, Bobby and Mikey as the skeletons, all the sound effects. Keenan just throwing like incredible one-liners every time they move to a different floor. Throughout the haunted elevator as it is. And I mean, again, talking about cultural impact, this had a freaking Halloween special, which is really hard to find now. It's nowhere to be found on Peacock. I don't know why, but not that it was the most amazing special in the world, but this was a sketch that aired in like the late 80s or 90s. Like there would have been like a David S. Pumpkins movie. That's how big, this sketch kind of, permeated the culture. So let me bring it over to Haynes. Again, thank you for not picking this one, because I was just going through my list and he's going to pick it. What do you think about what do you have to say about the man, the myth, the legend, David S. Pumpkins?
Well, obviously it's a great pick. I don't remember a sketch, an SNL sketch. I mean, I don't know when the last time I saw a sketch blow up like this. It was so huge in pop culture. I mean, we're still talking about it. I mean, not just, I feel like anyone who cares about SNL at all, mention Halloween, of course, is probably the first thing they think of. It's just so incredibly popular. And it was really, really funny and really, really goofy and weird. And Bobby Moynihan doing the, "I'm happy," or whatever, it was cracking me up. And I remember exactly where I was when I saw this episode. I try and watch essentially every episode of SNL live. It doesn't always happen. This was one of those nights where we were actually in Alpharetta, Georgia, not far from where these guys play. I had been sorry. I've been seeing. That's just really just coincidence. But I'd been down at a fish show. I followed this bay of fish around. These outdoor venues, usually most places have to be done at amphitheaters at like 11 o'clock or something. So, our hotel's just around the corner. We ordered a pizza. We're rushing back to the hotel, and we popped on just in time for SNL. We had missed the cold open, but Hanks was out for the monologue. And I just remember crying, laughing with my buddy in this hotel room, in Alpharetta with nothing to do. If you don't know anything about Alpharetta, it's just like a suburb out in the middle of nowhere. There's just maybe a Buffalo Wild Wings and a mall, and it's so we didn't have any party to go to. There's no after party, after the show or something where some other band's playing that you can party till 3 a.m. So we go back, we pop on our, SNL Old Reliable, and we get this incredible sketch. And it's a special memory to me, honestly, just that night and this episode and sketch. So October 22nd, 2016, I'll never forget.
We can all remember where we were, October 2016. Oof, what a time to be alive in this great country. Haskell, let me bring you in here. The man himself is with us. I'm going to need you to do a David S. Pumpkins impression for us before you get to your point.
Any questions? So you want to talk about pop culture impact? You can go down to the Halloween store and you can get Weekend Sketch Show Pumpkin Man. You can pick that up. You can dress as David S. Pumpkins, and same thing. Again, we talk about searching for moments where the show just blows up. You remember how deep ingrained this show is in American pop culture. I actually remember, you talk about remembering what this sketch was, where you were when you watched it, and I almost remember there was a stretch there where I was almost sick of it, almost I'm not even gonna have the right word for it, but I just wanted it to go away, and then it almost flipped. It was well, no, these are the moments I'm searching for. It's nice when these things blow up from SNL, and you have all these people that don't watch the show anymore, or don't watch the show, or just kind of casual fans and checking every so often. When it really catches those people, it's crazy, and it's one of those sketches too that it's almost the memory of it has become bigger than the sketch. It's still a hilarious sketch, but when you go back, you're just oh yeah, that was the sketch. It's not, David S. Pumpkins came back, in a cameo role, that season finale. But this wasn't a character that showed up 4 times in a season. They didn't do David S. Pumpkins every Halloween. They did the special, which was, aside from SNL. But this wasn't a character that popped up a ton. And to still be so popular, it's just a testament to kind of, I think, the way it caught people in that initial viewing.
Definitely. No, I mean, kind of echoing what you said about how, people who weren't tuning into SNL just, getting caught up in the David S. Pumpkins mania. There's a line in this sketch that Keenan says where, Kate and I think Beck, who are the couple, are just saying God, I mean, why are you going so in on David S. Pumpkins? And Keenan has some line it's 100 floors of frights. They're not all going to be winners, which is almost its own metaphor for being an SNL fan, where, I have so many of my friends who are just man, why do you watch every episode of SNL? because because they'll always have their reasons. Oh, it's not as good as what it used to be. Saturday Night Live dead. I mean, they don't actually say stuff like that. I don't have friends who are like that. But being an SNL fan is you sit through 100 floors of frights. Sketches are not always going to be winners, but then you get something like David S. Pumpkins or the sketches we're talking about tonight, where it's like, all right, yeah, that's why I'm here as an SNL fan. But Bill, do you have anything else to add on David S. Pumpkins?
Well, I think you guys covered a lot of it, but for me, it's a personal thing that when you have a small child that can't watch everything that's on SNL, you start parsing and figuring out what sketches I can show her, and I do that almost every week now. But when probably about a year after this came out, my daughter was 7, and I'm like, I think she's okay with David Pumpkins. So, and it is still, and when she's on the SNL Network podcast in about 10 years, her origin story will be the first thing she saw was David Pumpkins, and we watch it 100 times a day, and it doesn't get old. Like I don't get sick of it. I mean, will it go down as maybe one of the top 10 or 20 characters and or sketches of all time because of its memorability and because of it being a one-off? Quite possible. And the animated special is available online. You just have to search for it. But we watched it the other night, actually. So I can tell you offline where it is.
You're such a great dad, Bill.
Haskell, were you going to jump in there? Or I can tell if you had something.
No, one more thing about the sketch. Also, great appearance by Leslie Jones in that sketch. Like at a time early in her SNL career, where maybe she was finding her footing. I forget the exact wording she uses, but she's like, "I'm crazy for David Pumpkins." Like, oh my god!
And her bouncing around with the chainsaw, like dancing, her face, her expression, everything. That's a really good note. Great Leslie Jones appearance. Bill, I'm glad you showed your daughter David S. Pumpkins, and you have, or maybe you have shown her the Trick or Treat with Jeffrey Montgomery. Maybe not yet.
No.
That's why we can wait a while for that one. Good.
Too much explaining in that one.
Our resident great parent here on the panel, Bill. All right, cool. So that is the live sketches. Let's move on over to the pre-tapes. Bill, I will bring you in on this one. Which pre-tape did you want to talk about tonight?
Well, I'm going to go a little bit off. It's not going to be from a Halloween episode, but it is Halloween related. It's from a Kristen Wiig hosted episode. Aw Nuts, Mom's a Ghost. And it's a parody of all these crappy Disney early 10s Disney shows where, the kids are just goofy and rambunctious, and the mother goes over to Korea, has an affair with a businessman, gets killed, and comes back as the ghost from The Ring. And it's fantastic. It's Kristen Wiig. Even after she had left the show, she was still able to do this really, really great, memorable sketch pre-tape. And, she sucks the soul out of a teacher who's trying to tell her about bad grades, and she's hanging on the wall. She comes out of the TV, and the family is not fazed at all. Oh, nuts, Mom. Is it really time to go to bed? And so, yeah, this is my pick. This was such a fantastic sketch for Kristen Wiig.
This one was definitely on my list, Bill. I am just a sucker for any time SNL pokes fun at Disney or Disney Channel stuff. I mean, their Disney Channel sketches in particular have all been pretty great. But Haynes, let me bring you in on this one. What are your thoughts on this?
This is a great pick, and I actually completely forgot about this one, but I do love Kristen Wiig as the Korean water ghost, I think is what they call her. And so funny when she's like crawling out of the TV. She has all these cheesy one-liners. That's like her thing, as that character. So she's like crawling out of the TV, like, "Mom, get out of the TV." But you said it was movie night. And then and then when she sucks the soul out of the teacher and "Don't tell Dad," it gets a laugh out of everybody. Yeah, great pick. Just a really, really funny sketch. I had forgotten all about it, but a very funny one. Yeah, great pick.
Yeah, and this one was also interesting to me because I don't remember the exact year that they did this, but definitely not like around the time The Ring came out. This is like years and years after. So
I believe it was 2013.
Yeah, so I think The Ring came out in like 04, 05
Right.
sort of thing. So interesting for the show to kind of bring that in, that many years after. But hey, it still worked, and it still worked yesterday when I was rewatching this. I totally forgot about this one. Haskell, do you have any thoughts on the sketch?
Yeah, my research, looking through Halloween sketches, there were certain things that kind of fell through the cracks in terms of not being Halloween time sketches. So that fell through the cracks for me. Super funny sketch. Everything you guys said is true, though. The way that she's able to cut between this creepy ghost and then the cheesy mom is great. SNL rarely misses when they do like the family sitcom sort of parody, especially aiming at Disney or Nickelodeon. So just kind of seconding everything that you guys said.
For sure. All right, cool. I think everyone spoke on that one. So we are going to move along to Haynes. Which pre-tape do you want to talk about tonight?
So I really, really love this one, and I think it actually might not have been a Halloween episode, but it sure feels like a Halloween pre-tape, since it does star Bill Hader as Frankenstein. And so this would be Firelight, the I guess Twilight kind of parody, where Taylor Swift is playing the girl, and she's falling in love with Bill Hader, who's this Frankenstein, and he can't kiss anyone without choking them to death. He's scared of fire. They're like trying to flirt in science class, and she goes to light the Bunsen burner, and he's acting like so cool and charming, up until this point. And she goes to light the Bunsen burner, and he jumps up, it's like because he's afraid of fire. And I think, his group is called the Franks or something. So they've got this, there's the cliques, all the cliques at the school. And I don't know if I actually need to say this, but I did not read the Twilight books or watch the movies, or so I'm not super familiar with all the inner details of every storyline. But I think as any average Joe in pop culture, I knew enough about it to really love this sketch. And everyone was just so funny in those costumes, like Keenan, with his, as one of the Franks. So this is just a highlight for me. I think I could go back and rewatch this 1,000 times.
Haynes, we all know that you're Team Jacob. You don't have to hide your Twilight sort of thing in front of us. We're all friends here. But yeah, great pick. This is one that I completely forgot about when we were doing our favorite digital shorts, Superfan Takeover, a couple months ago, or I don't even know when that was at this point. But this is like an underrated digital short. Kind of interesting that it's like labeled a digital short, and it's not how they typically do it. I mean, you guys got to remind me, is Andy like in this one at all, or does he have
just for a flash? I think there's a flash at the very beginning. Like Taylor Swift is like, who's that guy? And whoever the other character is says, who, him? And it shows Andy doing his best, like Blue Steel kind of face. Yeah. And she says, no, him. And looks over at Frankenstein Bill Hader.
No, definitely. And Frankenstein Bill Hader, surprisingly, we didn't talk about this sketch, but there was the Frankenstein Dracula sketch that Bill played as Frankenstein. So one of his recurring characters, Frankenstein. I guess he's got one of those faces. Haskell, do you want to jump in on this one?
Speaking of him playing Frankenstein, talk about it being on the nose. Where we talk about Bill Hader being his generation's Phil Hartman, and then you have sort of Bill Hader. Whenever I see that sketch and I see Bill Hader's Frankenstein, afraid of the fire, all I can think of is fire, bad, and in that. It's Phil Hartman, and it's just so sort of like this, I don't know, history repeating itself moment. But overall, super fun sketch. Another thing that I think SNL does really well is when you take these movie parodies, these movie trailers, and you just substitute in some character that shouldn't be there. It reminds me a lot, not a Halloween sketch, but when they did Oscar the Grouch as Joker, like I just feel like they have a really high success rate with sketches like this.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is like the type of referential parody, because I love like every like sort of movie and TV riff that SNL does when they like really do something like this versus like, recently looking back, a couple weeks ago now, but like for me, like the Squid Game sketch that they just did, which to me was kind of like a lot of like reference vomit and just like, this is the show, this is Squid Game versus like really putting like a spin on it like they do in this sketch. I'd like to see SNL, current day SNL, do that more, like the Oscar the Grouch sketch. Bill, do you want to jump in on this one before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, same as what you're saying. I was going to reference the Squid Game as well. I was not familiar with the Twilight stuff other than seeing it in pop culture. Kind of passed by me. But SNL is at its best when they can parody something and it's still funny to you when you haven't seen it. And then if you do see it in the future, you can go back and get another level from that funny. This was a great. I mean, Bill Hader at his best, and it's a great pick.
Definitely, yeah. That is a great one to bring to the table as far as pre-tapes go. So I think the next person we have is David S. Pumpkins himself, Haskell. Which of these pre-tapes do you want to talk about?
I had to cheat again, like like Bill and Haynes had to. My Halloween pre-tape aired in March. But I talked earlier, I like when we take recurring characters and we put them into situations that feel, festive. So I went with the Unknown Caller, which is a Chad sketch where we take Pete Davidson's Chad, and we put him sort of into a Scream parody with John Mulaney as the killer. And, up until this point, a lot of the Chad sketches had to do with people kind of fawning over Chad. So they kind of changed it and kind of put him in danger in this point, and nothing changes about Chad, which is incredible. I know the character Chad is kind of you either love that character, you hate it, or you loved it and you're sick of it. But at that time, I still really enjoy the character. I enjoyed it then. I enjoy it now. They do just enough to keep it short enough that it works for me. There's a lot of great sort of quick cuts. At one point he has to put his pants on, and then we cut away and they're just sort of blurring out his below the waist and stuff like that. So I enjoyed that it was kind of a Scream parody. I enjoyed that it was that Chad character in a different way. And so that's my selection.
Very nice, Haskell. I'm glad you picked this Chad sort of scary horror one as opposed to, I think they did the haunted house one last season with Adele, which I did not enjoy as much, but this one I really liked. Haynes or Bill, do you guys have anything to add on this one?
Chad, like Haskell said, at this time he was still kind of funny. I think they've gone to that well a few too many times. But yeah, him and Mulaney playing off each other was fantastic. Great out of the realm pick. I like that. Chad at the beginning definitely he had so many good lines just doing his okay. But at this point, I'm glad they haven't brought him back in a little bit. But when he did it with Mulaney, yes, that was a great pre-tape.
They did. They've definitely have kind of beaten us over the head with Chad a lot, and it is the same character every time. But I don't think they're ever horrible. I think it can still be pretty funny. Obviously, John Mulaney's funny anytime. I had kind of forgotten about this sketch a little bit. I did think about the haunted house one with Adele, which I didn't think was bad. I thought it was a little slow at the beginning, but it picked up toward the end. Listen, I feel like we're probably not going to see a lot of Chad in the future. I feel like they've, done a lot with him, and probably maybe everyone's on the same page that, there's not a lot of places that we can take him at this point, because that's kind of his character, is that his character is not someone who would change or have any sort of arc. So hard to have an exciting, even mini plot for a lot of Chad stuff in the future. But I think this is a fun pick. Like I said, I do think Chad is still pretty funny in most of those sketches that we've seen him. So yeah, good pick.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like Chad appearing again, I imagine that they're gonna want to save, any other Chad jokes they come up with for his Peacock series once Pete Davidson leaves the cast of the show. Before we move on, I do, as a fun little trivia thing, I do want to ask you guys: can you guess how many appearances Pete has had of Chad so far? Does anyone have a guess off the top of their head?
I'd say 12.
Anybody else?
10.
Haynes?
9. I'm playing like Price is Right rules.
You guys are all very close. Haskell and Bill, so close. 11 times. He has done it 11 times, which has got to be, as far as current era of the show, one of the most frequent appearances. I mean, I think What Up With That there's only been maybe 9 or 10 times, and that's including the 40th anniversary and the at-home special. So I found that interesting. Obviously, Pete's a big star on the show now, so it makes sense that I've been bringing him back a lot. All right, cool. So I'm going to move on to my pre-tape that I selected. Again, really interesting theme that we have going here, as far as these are horror sketches that may or may not have aired during Halloween, because I think this one too did not air during Halloween. This is when this one aired. This was kind of around the time where I was really becoming a big sort of film geek. I was always into movies, but really getting into kind of auteur-esque directors. So this hit me at the perfect time. The Wes Anderson horror movie trailer, the Edward Norton's appearance as Owen Wilson is great. I mean, so many kind of great, well cast appearances in this one. And it adds an extra kind of meta textual layer to the sketch that Edward Norton has worked with Wes Anderson a couple times, has worked with Owen Wilson in Wes Anderson movies a couple times. So when he, gives the line "Oh wow, there's some crazy people standing in our yard, hon. I think we're about to get murdered." That line always kills me. I remember quoting that a ton with my friends when the sketch aired. But yeah, I mean, this is a prime example of when SNL is able to parody something and brings in the production value to such a high level of degree. I mean, I know sometimes I feel there have been sketches where they almost focus on the production design and the accuracy first and then write the sketch after that, just to, we have this set and, now we got to make use of it. That wasn't the case here. They captured the feel of Wes Anderson, but also is a really, really funny sketch. So does anyone want to jump in on the Wes Anderson horror trailer?
I'll just say, I think I remember them doing a really great job with the set design and stuff. They really made it look kind of Wes Anderson-y. And of course, Wes Anderson, just is beautiful. The imagery is just amazing anyway. So pretty funny sketch. I guess the house is haunted by these overly polite murderers or something. And of course, that Owen Wilson impression is pretty good. Great pick. Very funny sketch.
I've been a fan of Wes Anderson movies since before it was popular to be a fan of Wes Anderson movies. So they hit every beat in this, and it's the commercial parodies are always the best, or the trailers are always the best when you're not sure if it had actually gone to commercial or not. And I don't remember if it aired between two sketches or if you thought they were going to go to commercial, but this was definitely something that if you had seen it by itself, you would have went, was that real? Or so yeah, they nailed it, and Edward Norton was fantastic in this.
And a classic Wes Anderson name, right? Is it the Midnight Coterie of Sinister Intruders or something like that? It's a very overly done, unneeded title too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I and with a new Wes Anderson movie on the horizon, The French Dispatch, maybe SNL will dip into this territory again in the coming weeks. But all right, cool. So that is my selection for the pre-tapes. Really good choices all around. All right, we're gonna move on to our next. Oh, Haynes, you got?
Can I throw out one runner-up that I thought was pretty good of the
real quick?
of the pre-tapes. Yeah, we don't have to do a full discussion here. But I did think the girls' Halloween night where Vanessa, Cecily, and Adie go out together, I do think that's a pretty funny one. A lot of, the type of jokes that you would expect making fun of any, like girls' night where they go out and drink too much. But just I still think it's an enjoyable watch. So that's a runner-up.
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing that one up. I thought for sure, as far as like our list, somebody was gonna mention that, so I'm glad you did. But cool, yeah, let's move on to the update correspondence here. For this one, I'm going to start with Haynes. Which are you bringing to the table tonight?
Well, Bill alluded to it already. So I guess Sandler has done this 3 times. My favorite one was actually the second one, version 2, which I think they call like even more tips for, coming up with low-cost Halloween costumes. And so the sneaker hand is from the second one. I did think the first one was funny with, squishy face guy and zero gravity guy or zero G guy with his face pushed back. First one was funny. And the third one's funny too. There's with the pickles and I can't remember which one is old Panthead. Planthead, I got a plant here. And they're all kind of the same character. But the second one was my favorite. I remember doing this at school. Like I remember being on the bus and pulling out the protractor and being like, I'm protractor face. Even though my vision's partially obscured, I could see you got candy. So just a lot of, this is classic, stupid Adam Sandler characters. And I don't know why so many of his characters have the same kind of voice. We used to, I was really into those Adam Sandler comedy CDs, with Toll Booth Willie and the beating of a high school janitor and all that stuff. And so I don't know why so many of his characters have kind of that same voice. But this is true classic Adam Sandler. I loved, you got the sneaker hand, like I said, protractor face, and I don't know. Did I make some notes here? What else did he do? Oh, crazy guy under the desk. Don't mind me just because you can't see me. Leave the candy on the desk. And just so I will go with So my pick for and there's a lot of good ones to pick. I feel like we had some good ones here, but I'll go with Sandler's costume tips, and particularly the second iteration. I think was my favorite of that.
Well, now we have 2 of our Halloween costumes from the panel here represented in our greatest SNL Halloween moments of all time, which is great. Really good pick there, Haynes. For me, the Best of Adam Sandler DVD was like almost like my gateway drug for SNL. I was already a huge Adam Sandler fan at the time, and picked up that DVD like right as I was getting into the show. So the Halloween sketch is his update correspondent piece is something I've watched a million times. Haskell or Bill, do you guys have any thoughts on this one?
So I almost showed up to today's episode. If I didn't have the suit, I was going to come as newspaper face. I don't think John having to edit our audio would have appreciated that, but I do. The second one, to me, that's the one I sort of watched and wrote down for me was that second one, newspaper face, and then he kind of pulls the newspaper out, he rolls it up, and he's like, he's a unicorn, and he's just, and I remember in those, decade documentaries that they did, I forget who says it, but they're saying how you're watching it when it happened. They were just in awe that Adam Sandler is really up there, just sort of like breaking apart, and dissecting sketch comedy, because what he's doing up there is essentially like a pitch meeting. And if you took these things that he's throwing out there, they sound completely stupid. But if you gave him a week to then write the sketch about it, that's sketch comedy. But all he's doing is giving you just the bare bones of it, and it works so well because he's amazing at it, and it's so incredibly stupid in the greatest way possible.
And thank you for bringing up newspaper face. I can't believe I forgot that one because that's probably my favorite. And yeah, very funny. He puts it on his head. He's like, "Wow, we're almost extinct."
That's a really good point there about how it's kind of like a nugget of an idea that he's just throwing fastballs there at the update desk. Haskell, Yeah, I mean, if you had been newspaper face man, we would have had to bring in like Daryl Hammond in post, just do your voice, for the rest of the episode. I'm sure John would have loved editing that. Bill, as the sneaker hand himself on today's episode, I'm sure you've got some thoughts on this one.
My daughter will appreciate getting 2 shout outs today, but when she was really little and I needed to make her laugh, I would pull out the Adam Sandler Halloween stuff, like, look at me, I'm Bookhead, and I would just give my own spin on it and make her laugh. And showing her that now, it's pretty funny. I mean, his first one, that was pretty much his breakout. I mean, he had only been on the show a couple of weeks. He was a writer the year before, but for him to go out there and do this, and they hadn't seen anything like this before. Most of the correspondents on Weekend Update, aside from Victoria getting on the desk, were pretty staid. They weren't, doing anything outrageous or anything like that. So to have him on there, especially as a bounce off of Kevin Nealon, who was, just kind of straight laced. I think it was great, and the fact that he brought it back 3 times and came up with funny ideas all 3 times. He gets a lot more credit for Thanksgiving and Hanukkah, but I think this is up there for sure.
Yeah, I mean, just to your point about like Sandler on Update, I mean, during his time on the show, he was kind of like the king of that. He had Opera Man, Cajun Man, like the Hanukkah song, obviously. So many great update pieces from the Sandman. But cool. So that is a great pick. For our next Halloween special that I'm sure we'll do next year, going to have to break out one of those costumes to keep to the Adam Sandler theme. Cool. So I think that brings us to Haskell. Haskell, what update correspondent do you want to talk about?
So all my focus was on Sandler and all of his stuff on the update desk. So I got to go to my backup. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I don't have to break down what makes the Stefan on the update desk great. We all know it. You can go over 1,000 references. I'm going to focus to just one, in the fact that Jewish Dracula's name is Sidney Applebaum. That's all I'm going to – that's it. You guys can dissect it from there. I love that. That is one Stefan joke that can literally make me pee myself. And I've heard it 1,000 times.
I mean, that's like definitely like a Mulaney like last minute change, right? Like exactly. Am I wrong?
Yeah. It has to be. That's exactly what I thought when I was, rewatching a bunch of Halloween stuff. Of course, I watched this, and that was exactly my thought. Like, this had to be the line that day that Mulaney changed last minute to screw with Hader, because he laughs so hard at that. Like, there's no way he saw that line coming, and it was very funny. It's so funny.
Bill, do you have any thoughts on this one?
I also, that's a great pick. I also love his line about this place has everything: ghosts, goblins, my son.
Yeah,
makes me laugh every time.
Son. Yeah.
No, this is a great pick. It's Stefan. I mean, what can you say about him? He was so great. This may not have been his best one, but this was definitely fantastic.
Yeah, one more line that I wrote down for this one, and I'm gonna butcher it because my notes are all over the place here, but he makes mention of Slimer, and it's the idea of like putting like multiple hot dogs in your mouth at the same time. And then Seth, which this is like moment from Seth really killed me. He just kind of like whispers to himself or kind of says softly, he's like, I do understand, and I do want it to stop, or something like that. Like,
he repeats it a couple times. Yeah, it's so funny. No, I do understand, and I want it to stop, and I do understand.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, Haskell, kind of like you said. I mean, Stefan, like a classic Weekend Update character. So when we're talking about bringing these recurring characters in and having a holiday to kind of switch it up a little bit, this is like a prime example of that. And there's a ton of holiday themed Stefan update pieces that are great that people can check out. Bill, do you want to jump in here and give us your pick?
Well, as Haskell said, all my concentration was on Sandler as well, but I will go with one of my favorite recurring characters, even though it's not their best outing. I will go with Drunk Uncle. And the history of it is kind of funny looking back on it, especially celebrating Colin Jost's taking over as the most update appearances. This is right at the beginning of him and Che, and drunk uncle scoots on up, sits next to Che, looks at him and just keeps scooting and waving to him with that kind of racist look on his face. I mean, he has a couple of good lines in here. He goes to Caribbean Queen a little bit too much, singing Caribbean Queen. But my favorite line was that, yeah, I got trapped in a corn maze. But yeah, I mean, drunk uncle, this was kind of towards the end of his tenure, but yeah, it was still a very funny appearance and talking about all the different Halloween stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Drunk Uncle was actually what I wanted to talk about, and my other picks have been talked about. So I'm really scratching my head here. So as I figure that out, Haskell or Haynes, do either of you want to talk about this Drunk Uncle appearance?
If you guys caught me last year, you would have caught me in my drunk uncle outfit. That was my Halloween costume last year. Another one of those characters. Did they squeeze everything out of it? Yup. Do I still get a kick out of it? Yup. Like I still loved it. That moment where he's kind of rolls away from Che though is a classic drunk uncle moment. I remember watching it live and he pulled up next to Che and I went, oh, this is kind of because it was like this new sort of thing. And, you're like, this is a character. This is one of like Weekend Update anchors kind of have the characters, and there's been crossover, but you associate certain characters with certain anchors, and you're like, this is a Seth Meyers character. How is this going to work out? And you're like, oh, what's he going to do with Che? And then he immediately goes over to Jost. What a classic moment.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, yeah. As I was watching this one, the another line that stuck out to me before I ask you guys for more of your thoughts was, what's my costume? I'm America, because that's where we are in the garbage. Like the way he pronounces garbage was great. Does anyone else want to jump in on Drunk Uncle before we keep rolling?
I just love Drunk Uncle in general. I vaguely remember this one. This is not one that I rewatched, and so I vaguely remember it. But I just love Drunk Uncle as a character. I just think it's one of those great Weekend Update characters that I can see plenty of times. I just really love Bobby Moynihan. I was so disappointed when he left the show, but it's just part and parcel with the SNL experience. People come and go. You can't be too broken up about it, but I just always loved Bobby Moynihan, and this was a great character of his. So I kind of love anything Drunk Uncle.
Yeah, I love Bobby Moynihan. I am very bummed that he hasn't shown up really at all since he left the show. But I know just based on podcast experience or appearances that he's been on that, it sounds like his relationship with the show is still great, and I would, love to see him pop up. I mean, he should be hosting, for Mr. Mayor if they really want to get more people watching that, because I still have not jumped in on that show, but I know, people are liking that one. But cool. So again, my pick here, I am going to go with. I'm back and forth. I'm going to go with Willie's appearance for his Halloween appearance. Full disclosure, Bill messaged me about Garth and Kat, which I did not rewatch for this one. So we can also touch on that if anyone has thoughts on that. But this Willie appearance, he does have some pretty funny lines here. He talks about how his dad would carve a hole in the back of a pumpkin and he would send him off to bed early. I thought that was really funny. There's a reference to Jeffrey Dahmer, haunted house that Willie would work at, and he would get a free home cooked meal every time he would work there. I mean, this is a character that I'm glad we were able to talk about Keenan on this episode, because as far as Weekend Update appearances go, Keenan has had a lot of those over the years during his long tenure on the show. And if people don't remember at home, Tracy Morgan also makes an appearance as Willie's life coach Woodrow, which was great. And I believe this is when Tracy came back and hosted the show after his accident. So obviously, great to see Tracy back on the show. Anyone have any thoughts on this one? Or, I mean, if you guys want to talk about Garth and Kat, definitely can talk about that one, but I did not rewatch it.
So just a quick, when I was in college, it was right around the time that Tracy Morgan was in the car accident and he wasn't doing so great. And Keenan was doing his college tour. And during the Q&A session, I asked Keenan about Tracy Morgan. And Keenan gave like a long, detailed answer about how much Tracy Morgan meant to him and how much Tracy Morgan helped him when he sort of came in after Tracy and stuff. So whenever I get to see those two working together, it brings me back to that moment because I know how much it means to Keenan and, you know, how much fun they're having out there together. And that's another one of those sketches where I just feel like you can tell how much fun Keenan and Tracy are having together just with utter nonsense. So that was again on my list. And if I lost Stefan, that would have been mine. So wonderful selection, Sammy.
Really good point there. And I mean, that's awesome that you got to, you know, go to that and see Keenan, you know, speak on that. You know, another Keenan and Tracy moment that comes to mind to me was that Eddie Murphy monologue, you know, when, you know, Chappelle and everybody is up there, Chris Rock, and, you know, Keenan pops in there at the end, which is, you know, one of my favorite moments in the recent history of the show. Do you either of you guys want to talk about on this Willie appearance?
I just, you know, Willie's always a funny character, but, you know, touching on, you know, we already talked about Sandler's character about making your own Halloween costumes, but I think Che says, you know, that he's not going to buy a costume or something, and because I guess he's not planning on dressing up. But before Willie knows that, he, you know, he says like, "Oh, making your own costume, that's smart. Like last year, I went as a spooky yellow and white ghost. I wore a bed sheet and went as a spooky yellow and white ghost. But you know, it's like they always say, that sheet's still wet, Willie." I just imagine this character wearing a piss-covered sheet, you know, as a Halloween costume, and him talking about all the delicious candies, and he's saying stuff like something about like rubber bands and duck salt packets, and I don't know, like, or duck sauce packets, and yeah, I don't know the kind of life that Willie's leading a hard life, it sounds like. But yeah, great character, and yeah, so funny pick, very funny pick.
Yeah, and I didn't rewatch this one, but I'd forgotten about this. But you know, Willie was always a great go-to character, maybe Keenan's best update character. But you know, he has so many good lines, always trying to stay positive in the face of so much adversity. So yeah, I kind of remember this one and how funny it was with him and Tracy on there. So great pick.
Definitely cool. So. Those are our picks for the categories. Before we move into, I want to get some brief thoughts from the super fans here on how they're feeling about the season 47 so far, the first 4 episodes. But you know, before we move on, really quickly, if anyone has like an honorable mention or something that they really wanted to talk about. I mean, Haynes, in our group text, I know you really wanted to talk about Catherine O'Hara's monologue. You know, if you want to speak on that, or if anyone really quickly has any other thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's seriously one of my favorite monologues of all time. And, you know, for people who haven't seen it, you should go watch it. But, you know, she's a great storyteller, and, you know, and they turn the lights down low. And if she's telling this story, you know, about this man following her father, you know, the music is, you know, they're kind of, you know, I don't know who's playing piano at that point, but, you know, he's, you know, like increasing the tempo and bringing it back down. And they're kind of like building some context for her little story. And I won't tell the whole story, but it's amazing to me because, you know, if you come from a family of siblings that like make fun of each other a lot, I just love, I get a lot of warmth from those kind of experiences and seeing other people have fun doing that same thing. And basically, you know, she tells this story that basically ends up with her father, you know, showing his butt, and then the guy seeing her father, or he says to the guy, like, "I'm going to get you Mark O'Hara," and Mark O'Hara says, "What could I do?" I turn around and moon the guy, and then the guy says, "And you too, Mary Margaret," and that's her little sister's name. You know, she's spent this whole story talking about how, she's got her little brother Michael and her little sister Mary Margaret there, and basically to use, the pettiness, to use a platform of this scale really just to burn your little sister and to tell her she has a butt face. It's just like brilliant. It's so beautiful and heartwarming to me. And my little sister's name is Margaret as well. It's not Mary Margaret, it's Margaret. But it really resonates with me. And I just imagine like myself being on that stage telling that same joke to make fun of my little sister. And it's just such a beautiful and heartwarming thing. And it's a really great laugh. Like, it's not just that it touches me in that way. It's a really great laugh. So if anyone hasn't seen it, please go and watch it. That's really one of my favorite monologues of all time. And by the way, I'm sorry I didn't think to turn on a light before we started this. The sun has been going down throughout the process, so it's like getting really dark.
It's on theme, It's very spooky.
Yeah.
I'm scared. If you guys are at home, just raise the brightness on your computers. That'll be fine. But and as we another peek behind the curtain here, but we were going to talk about best Halloween monologues in the show's history, and there really aren't a ton. So kind of going back to Haskell's point from earlier, it is interesting to see. When the show kind of chooses to go heavy on, the Halloween themes, and when they're just kind of like, this is another, episode of SNL that just happens to be at the end of October. Haskell or Bill, do you have any ones you want to talk about, really quickly as an honorable mention before we, move on?
The only thing I wanted to mention, if you were going to give a starter kit to someone watching SNL, going through the whole history of the show, you can't go wrong with either season 2 or the season 3 episode of Halloween for SNL. Season 2 was with Buck Henry, and it had an Omen parody where they sneak in Dildo Sharpener in 1975. So, and there's a Mr. Mike Least Love Bedtime Tales. And a shark appearance in the cold open. But the best one was the Charles Grodin one in season 3, where this was one of the strangest episodes of all time because he keeps breaking the fourth wall, acting like he doesn't know what he's doing. And but that one has the Coneheads Halloween, Erwin Mainway with his terrible Halloween toys, and the Killer Bees, where Grodin breaks the fourth wall and Belushi walks off the set. So if you're going to watch really, really old SNL and you want to get in the Halloween spirit, I would start with those two.
Definitely. Great recommendations, Bill, over there. And Haskell, anything else before we move on?
I couldn't put this sketch on my list because I actually don't think the sketch is that great, but I'm a sucker for like a funny comedy name. So I had to go with Gucci Renee's Partially Damaged Halloween Discount Basement. Just for the name alone, deserved a spot on my honorable mention list.
That was one that I rewatched, and I definitely remembered that when it aired. Not anything amazing, but I feel like Keenan, especially as far as like fake character names on SNL throughout his tenure, always has great ones. Most recently in the Rami Malek episode, the Bert Simpson, not
that's Bert,
but Bert Simpson. The only other one that I would mention that I'm surprised didn't come up, which people at home might be wondering about, is obviously the Vincent Price appearances from Bill Hader. I mean, as someone who didn't even know who Vincent Price was when I was watching those episodes when they aired at the time, it was always funny to see the kind of old Hollywood characters that they would bring in. And again, another excellent John Hamm appearance in a Halloween episode. But great. Yeah. So those are our favorite SNL Halloween moments of all time. No need to watch the official SNL Halloween special. Just watch these sketches that we talked about today, and we've got you covered. If there's any that we missed and you're like, I can't believe they didn't talk about this one, feel free to leave us a comment or tweet at us or whatever. We'd love to hear from you guys on your favorite Halloween moments in the show's history. Right before we move on to plugs and wrapping up the episode, I do want to hear from the super fans on their thoughts, general thoughts on how season 47 is going so far. We are 4 episodes into the season so far. So I'm gonna start with Haskell. How are you feeling about the season so far? Are you feeling good?
Yeah, I was on the hot takes episode after the season premiere. And I said I felt really optimistic about the season, and that's continuing to go along. One of the things that I was pretty disappointed about was not seeing a cast changeover, not building for the future. But they surprised me week one, and they continue to surprise me. And that's just what I want to see them keep doing. Like, I want to see some more Sarah Sherman. I want to see more Please Don't Destroy. I just want to see them continue to grow. It was a great episode with Jason Sudeikis to be able to take it. He built into the cast really well, and it wasn't just Jason Sudeikis' greatest hits. I mean, we saw him as the devil, and then even, when we talk about What Up With That, like, they built it around his character more than we've seen in the past because of what that character has taken on after he's left the show. But he really helped build a voice for the future moving forward. And I just want to keep seeing them do that for, a double-digit more episodes for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, this episode in particular from, last week with Jason Sudeikis, it kind of reminded me of his last season on the show where he would kind of just like pop in here and there and meld it in with, the rest of that generation of cast with like Taron Killam and Vanessa Bayer and all that. So, yeah, cool. Well, Bill, I'll move on to you for your thoughts. I mean, is there anybody in particular in the cast who you think is like having like a really good season so far that you want to highlight, or just your overall thoughts?
Well, I mean, obviously JAJ has come right out of the gate, being in the first 4 cold opens and having so many impressions, and I mean, he's just been fantastic. I think the writing has been better this year so far than we've seen maybe in the last 2 or 3 years on an overall basis. So I'd love to see that continue. It'll be interesting to see what happens when they first get their first kind of dud host. I mean, Kardashian was non-traditional, but she was game and she did a good job. So it'll be interesting to see what happens the first time they have a host that's not quite melding with the cast, how the writing will step up at that point. But so far, fantastic season. Looking forward to see more of Sarah Squirm as well.
Definitely. And then I'm going to move it over to Haynes, who I could almost see. Like I alluded to these guys, I'm not wearing my real glasses, so I don't really see much of you. But Haynes, I want to hear how you're feeling about season 47 thus far.
Yeah, we got to wrap this up before I vanish back to the spirit realm. Something that so I've always felt like for several years, for a really long time, and maybe it's just because like I feel like the biggest stars on the show were Kate and Adie and Cecily. It's felt like SNL's been in a really feminine phase for a really long time. I always felt like it's really kind of we're in a really just feminine iteration of SNL last several years. I don't know if it's just because like Kate hasn't been there, and like with the Rami Malek episode, Adie didn't show up till the very last sketch or something, and or something like that, I think. And maybe, I know a lot of the writers they hired, I think were majority male. There is something in these first few episodes that has felt a more masculine version of the show. And I'm wondering if we're seeing like a little bit of a transition into, whatever this new phase of SNL is going to be, where it's a kind of a more masculine SNL, particularly this last episode just seemed to touch on a lot of like male topics. Like we had melon, and then which is very funny, and we had the underwear, like the men's underwear that apparently I guess as we all know, we're just shitting our pants all the time. And even just the sketch with Mooney, as Jason Sudeikis is stealing his wife, it kind of that fear that men have about having to like just be that strong person in a relationship or something about like all the stuff that whatever it is, these insecurities that guys worry about. It just feels like, particularly this last episode, we touched on a lot of these male themes, and in general it has just felt a little bit less feminine to me than it has the last several years. And I wonder if we're starting to see a transition into just like whatever this new phase of SNL is going to be. And now I feel like I really am disappearing into the dark here. Like I'm losing, I can't even like see my hair and stuff.
That's a really interesting point, Haynes. Obviously, like you said, I mean, with Kate not around, it will be interesting to see. I don't know if we know exactly when she's coming back, but how much of a shift there will be more into that direction, when she does come back. I will just highlight that, there are some voices on the cast who I feel like have been having like a good season, like Heidi Gardner, I think has been having like a really strong season. And Melissa, I know her, recent update piece was cut, but it is on YouTube, and you guys should definitely check that out. But she's definitely had more screen time this season than, so far than maybe she even had like all of last season. So,
No doubt.
but yeah, definitely, interesting points from all you guys. And yeah, I'm loving this season so far. I've had the opportunity to like watch the show with friends for the first time in a while, live over the last couple weeks. And that's been like a fun change of pace for me. It really feels like, at least in my small circle, that people are really enjoying what the show is doing so far. So looking ahead at the weeks to come, if you guys are just kind of tuning in to the SNL Network for the first time, the way that we're doing it this season is that every week there are 3 shows throughout the week to cover, the episodes. So on Saturday, live after SNL airs, we have our Hot Take show. That is the show where we come on. John will go around the table. Everyone can give like their immediate hot take digestion of the show that they just saw. And then on Monday is our roundtables, and that is where people are able to really break down, what worked, what didn't. You can kind of, people kind of have the time to, really marinate with the sketches, and they can talk about what they really liked. And then on Thursdays, we have our patron feedback show. This is like a new show that we've been doing this season because of our new Patreon, which is a lot of fun. The patrons can come in and ask questions and give their thoughts on how they're feeling about the shows thus far. So those are a lot of fun. If you have not checked out our Patreon, I think it's a really great offering. You get exclusive news before anybody else, and just exclusive news in general on what's going on with the show. There are opportunities to be a part of the podcast, which is really fun as well. So definitely, if you have not checked out the new SNL Network Patreon, definitely do so, and maybe become a patron. And then, looking ahead, the next show we have is our Hot Take show for the Kieran Culkin hosted episode, which I am very excited about as a fan of Succession. So that will be a lot of fun. So be sure to tune in here. And as always, make sure that you are subscribed to YouTube so you never miss an episode on any podcast network, and make sure you're following us on social media. So again, thank you guys so much for joining us for the show. I'm going to go around and let you guys plug yourselves. Phrasing. Haskell, please, where can the people find you?
Yeah, at Andrew Haskell on Twitter. Come check it out. Stand-up dates around New England, always popping up. Love for you to come out and see his show. And then just attempts at funny stuff and funny tweets. So, come check it out.
Absolutely. And Bill, where can the people find you?
They can find me on Instagram or Twitter at BKLove73. Come commiserate with me in my sports misery.
Definitely. And you can't see him, but he is still with us here virtually. Andrew Haynes, where can the people find you?
You can always find me on Twitter at SNL Has a Cast, and Instagram at Candrew Attitude. And happy Halloween!
I'm gonna have to run away from this computer because I am spooked. And then you guys, thank you again for letting me host this episode of the Superfan Takeover. You can find me at that Sammy Kay on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, where I am doing stupid things and giving my takes on everything going on in pop culture. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Superfan Takeover. And I hope you guys have a good rest of your week. We'll see you next time.